was made clear in the last set of negotiations that any changes to the current roster pattern would be done by mutual agreement. Now, the company have clearly reneged on that. And on top of that, these guys have not had a wage increase since October the 12th because this negotiations have been so long and drawn out.
It's just another afternoon at a suburban sporting field. Players stretching themselves to their physical capabilities, putting it all on the line in the heat of battle. But there's a trend that's on the rise. Mild traumatic brain injury is emerging as a major public issue for all high-contact sports in Australia, with many of the hundreds of concussions each week going undiagnosed and untreated.
Maybe they don't sustain a concussion, but all these subconcussive blows, so non-clinical hits to the head, could potentially lead to cumulative effects.
Clinical neuropsychologist Andrew Gardner has been studying sport-related injuries for the last 8 years, and he's in the process of putting together data on ex-players locally that have struggled in later life.
We have guys that are reporting that they have some memory difficulties, so subjectively they're reporting that their processing speed might have slowed down a little bit, and then their decision-making is not quite as strong as what it was previously.
Just recently, concussion in sport has raised its head on a world stage. After originally denying that it was aware of any links between American football and brain injuries, the NFL reached a settlement of $765 million with 4,500 former players, which sued the organisation over concussion-related injuries. Many of the cases have been linked to mental health incidents.
So there are guys that subscribe to the theory that yes, all of these concussions have led to mental health issues, and depression was one of them. And with depression comes suicidality, and these guys have got so much pressure in their life that they haven't found a way to manage that.
David Howe was what you call an on-field enforcer in the local rugby league competition in the 1970s and 80s. Winning at all cost had a price, and he's currently paying for it.
I have trouble remembering today what I was doing yesterday, that sort of thing. There's some friends that say to me, "You got to write it on your calendar." Well, I got me poor old calendar at home. It's just about buggered. Some were happy here, you know, with the local league, but there was Dean Lance and Mal Graham and these folks, and they wanted to go to Sydney.
Although his long-term memory is sharp, the West legend now struggles to do basic day-to-day activities. Alarmingly, part of the good old days meant little was done to assess concussion, and over the course of a season, it added up.
Overall, I suppose it'd be about 8 or 10, 12, something like that. But
sometimes a couple in a game?
You could, yeah.
Modern-day athletes are now in the hands of experts that have the task of making a vital call.
There's a lot of pressure on the sports physician or the doctors that are making decisions on the sideline to get their elite athletes back out on the field, where we see on television where guys appear to have concussions.
International concussion consensus guidelines say that if a player is suspected of sustaining concussion, they should be removed from play and not return in the same match.
There's a lot more that can be done, but the codes governing bodies are certainly working with experts and researchers in ensuring that they're looking after the welfare of their players.
Michael Kane, NBN News. A day where the pressure wasn't weighing on the pros for a change. The Waratah Pro-Am attracted a who's who of the Hunter's best golfers.
To get someone back like Nathan Green and James Nitty's just a credit to us, and Nathan was obviously a junior here and he's coming back to support us, so we're very much indebted to him.
And the former US PGA Tour player was glad to be back on home turf.
This is sort of where I grew up playing, and haven't played here for probably about, I was trying to work out the other day, probably about 13, 14 years, so it's going to be good, interesting to see how I play around here.
After missing out on making next year's tour, Green plans to play the Australian Summer of Golf before taking a 2-month break in the Hunter. But another season of missed opportunities could see a tough decision being made.
There was some good golf and there was some poor golf, but hopefully next year I've sort of got a full year on the web.com, and hopefully it picks up a little bit. Otherwise, I'll sort of reassess what I'm going to do.
Fresh from finishing 12th at the Perth International, James Nitties was using the event to keep his game ticking over.
This is sort of practice for us. I'd rather come out here and keep the mind fresh than be on the range striping balls all day.
Like Green, the Charlestown product is desperate to get back onto the sport's top tier.
It's always going to be frustrating. We're always, when you're not making it back to the PGA Tour where you want to go. So being a golfer, we're always such perfectionists and put so much pressure on ourselves. Learn a lot and hopefully improve next year.
New Zealand Open winner Jake Higginbottom also used the event to fine-tune before heading back to Asia.
Back here for just a couple of weeks now, and then off to India, then the Philippines, and depending how I play, I'll either play Aussie Open or in Indonesia, and then there's a couple later in the year as well, so it's pretty busy.
Michael Kane, NBN News. After only acquiring his pacing licence to drive in June, it didn't take long for James Harding to make a mark. His first victory was certainly one to remember.
When I won, I only won by a metre, so I didn't really know till the end of it, but when I won, it was, it was a good feeling.
Harness racing is in his blood, and the 18-year-old has been mentored by his father, Jeff. He's been putting all his energies into a sport, while many of his friends have been going down a different track.
A lot of my mates go surfing and cricket, soccer and everything like that, but I don't know many people my age that are doing harness racing, but I enjoy it, so I think it's up there with any other sport.
A recent trip to America saw the doors open for the young Rainsman. There he spent time with leading Swedish trainer Jimmy Takter.
Their sulkies are a lot different, so they're a lot wider and they sit a lot closer, so the bikes lean back a bit, so that's where they get the motion, they're leaning back. But no, the racing's a lot different, I noticed over there.
And next month he'll be heading to the States in a bid to carve out a career as a freelance driver.
It's sort of a hard game to get into regarding the leading drivers, but I'm trying my best to make something myself over there. If an opportunity comes up, I'll take it.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
He was exuberant, energetic, lots of fun. He made an impression on everybody, and that's, I think, one of the reasons why his death has also made such an impression on everybody.
It's a slow transformation, but tomorrow Newcastle Foreshore will be thriving with more than 10,000 music fans. Today there was an attempt to boost that number, with organisers of Fat as Butter offering a new deal.
We sort of put together a ticket where you can actually come in after work, so to speak, and then for a commensurate sort of price, you can still get the back half of the show.
This year's lineup features US rap rock band Gym Class Heroes, while crowd favourite Bliss and Esso is back.
They played just slightly before Ice Cube in 2010, and certainly, testament to their career rise. That was definitely a point that I remember.
For lawn team James Osborne, tomorrow will bring the opportunity of a lifetime. After winning the Youth Rocking the Black Dog final, he'll also take to the stage.
Professionally, for him to be part of that whole environment that's, backstage, and the whole professional environment that's around that with peers like that, it's going to be something I don't think he'll learn out of a textbook, but certainly, I think he'll treasure and take away all those lessons,
Close to 200 police will be patrolling the event.
We won't be tolerating any alcohol-related violence. Any juveniles that are intoxicated, their parents will be contacted.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
After 2 matches without any goals or maximum points to show, Jets fans are already asking questions of their club's title credentials. But the coach is staying stoic.
If you listen to the fans, you'll sit with the fans.
After a lacklustre performance last week against Perth with few genuine chances, there'll be changes. Carrying the can for the lack of finish up front is Craig Goodwin.
I think he's still working himself into the best form that he can get himself into. We know he's got the talent. We know that he's got plenty of ability that's been seen. But again, it's about being effective in those games.
Michael Bridges is now likely to head the point of attack in an effort to open the floodgates.
Probably his most preferred is playing is with a natural 10 and a 9 a 9 up front.
The Phoenix nicked a point against the Western Sydney Wanderers last round, and it was the combination of former Jets favourite Jeremy Brockie and Carlos Hernandez who did the damage.
Brockie is the one who's quite dangerous up front, and as we know, he's a noted goal scorer. But Hernandez is the one who makes him tick.
And the man to stop the ball supply, Ben Kantarovski.
Cantor's been doing well at training, and it's a lot of competition in that midfield, and there's every chance he'll have plenty of game time.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
Ewan's made it pretty clear that if blokes aren't playing as well, and he likes to use the bench, then he'll bring other blokes in.
Securing an Australian cycling legend for the second year running wasn't an easy task, but Robbie McEwen will be front and centre again.
International Tour de France stage winner, Olympian, very much respected, and big draw card.
The race is in honour of Mick Chapman, who died in 2010 and was the head cycling coach at the Hunter Academy of Sport for 20 years. Defending champion Sydney's Peter Milostic will go in as favourite to win back-to-back crowns, and nipping at his heels will be Hunter pro Joe Lewis, who claimed the title in 2011, but just competing in the memory of his former coach is all that matters.
I'm not putting any bets on myself this time round. I've just had a pretty big break after a big year in the States, but I'm not here for the result so much as to remember Mick.
But for a Hunter Cycling Club young gun, taking the glory is foremost on his mind.
I'm quietly confident about my form. This is one I really wanted to win, I'll make it no secret, and I'll be doing everything I can.
The event's in its third year, and organisers are hopeful the race will grow into an even bigger spectacle in years to come.
Hopefully we can build it up even bigger, and it'd be great to extend on what we've got now.
Michael Kane, NBN News. Lifeline answers around 1,400 calls every day from Australians needing crisis support and suicide prevention services, many coming from regional areas.
We average roughly around 1,200 a month now, so which was around 10 to 12,000 during the year, just from our area alone.
It's a vital service for those in need.
There are some people that rely on Lifeline as part of their personal management in their lives, in particular in mental health.
The constant workload can also weigh heavy on the volunteers.
It can be draining. You spend a lot of time listening to people's pain. If there's something that that I carry or that I think I may take home with me. I get an opportunity to debrief and talk about that and how that's affecting me.
Often it's the carers who fall through the cracks, and Graham's life hasn't been an easy one, raising 6 children, all with mental illness.
Yes, I tried to keep up as much of a normal life as I could, as well as giving duty to the children.
Keeping it close to her chest for many years, worried about the stigma.
I'm sure I didn't talk about it to people unless perhaps a close friend, and I'm sure my husband never mentioned it to anyone.
A shining light who's helped Anne through the tough times was ARAFME, the Association of Relatives and Friends of the Mentally Ill.
Carers do need a lot more support with this, with their loved one, because it is part of the recovery process. I think a person can't get well if their families aren't seen to.
Providing support, education and advocacy in order to help people effectively fulfil their caring role.
Yeah, we see a lot of families with anxiety and depression. They're on medication from their caring role. And you can imagine living with people with very ongoing psychosis. It's quite traumatising for families and especially the children.
75% of mental health problems emerge before the age of 25.
It's usually anxiety, depression, some young people self-harm, which is a problem. Some young people just have a relationship difficulty or breakdown. To come to Headspace, you don't actually have to be, unwell. You can just come if you're feeling down or sad or unhappy.
Headspace is a national youth mental health foundation helping thousands of young people get their lives back on track.
What happened in the past is that we didn't have the early help, so they were just delayed and people would seek treatment later on. So it is a high pressure world. There's lots of stress on young people.
Lee Hughes was 3 when his father took his own life. Coping with the loss hasn't been easy.
I've self-harmed, I've struggled with my own depression, and I'm still here.
Since coming to Headspace, Lee's turned his life around to the point where he's now helping others.
One night where I stopped 4 suicides, I think, 4 friends from suiciding. They've struggled with depression for a long time. They can't imagine life any differently.
Do you feel that you could one day fall off the rails again? Is it a worry for you?
It's always sort of there, the knowledge, and it's difficult to know. I'm not sure.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
Harvest is in full swing. And canola is the first crop off the rank, but it's been a challenging season with dry conditions hampering growth. On the Campbell's property west of Merriwar, only 37 millimetres has fallen since July.
That was great for the first 2 days, and then we got this hot, dry weather. It tended to dry it out so much quicker, and so therefore the amount of rains you had, the plant was not able to utilise that amount of rain.
But early planting has been a saving grace for the Campbells given the conditions. Overall, yields will be down on last season.
Down, I'd say, probably 20–25%, and any of the later crops, I'd suggest they'd be down even 50%.
The Campbells expect 1.5 tonnes of canola to the hectare. And as for prices...
There was a bit of a spike a few months ago in the canola price, and I know some guys got in and forward sold some crop then. So I think price is probably not too bad, but no, not a world-beating effort.
But it's even tougher conditions for those with livestock.
The stock are really the ones that are doing it the hardest, and we've supplementary fed some of our stock, and that's part of, I believe, part of a management plan that you have to take into account that it's a dry season.
Still, on the Campbells' property, that farmer optimism shines through.
The crops are quite remarkable for the amount of rain that we've had. I think we're very lucky to be getting a reasonable crop than what it could have been just very much a disaster.
Christy Reading, NBN News.
It is a beautiful landscape, so we need to make sure that we can sustain the use on the park for another 1,000 years to come.
From the get-go, it was clear these music fans were pumped.
We're from Foster and we've come to Fat as Butter to see Matt Corby.
No, we haven't been before, so we're really excited to see what's going to happen.
As the day wore on, they weren't disappointed. Cosmo Jarvis, a clear favourite. Hunter teenager James Osborne also whipping the crowd into a frenzy.
They really got behind me, and yeah, I've got an awesome bunch of fans, which is really good, really promising, yeah.
And there was another local flavour to the festival, with grilled staff run off their feet.
How are you coping? Yeah, really good. We're having a really busy day and everyone's having so much fun.
While the focus was on music, the McGrath Foundation used the opportunity to test out its new education initiative with a twist.
We've actually started our program called Curve Love. If you grow them, you need to know them. So we're starting to try and get young women to know their bodies better. So to start to do a few breast checks themselves, download our app, get to know their bodies, and if they have any concerns, they should go and see their doctor.
It proved a hit, and not just with the ladies. Emma Murphy, NBN News.
It's been 9 months since Jobe Wheelhouse left the club he loved most, and for a city he represented with pride, watching is now hard to take.
I feel for the players. You know, I've got a lot of good friends there, and you know, I want them to succeed for sure. But yeah, I didn't watch the game last week. I heard it wasn't too good at home, so you know, that's not up to me now. I'm past the Jets.
There's been some reports that Asian clubs are calling, and although tempting, the time is just not right.
I think in the back of my mind, I still think you know, that's a child's dream to play in Asia or play in Europe. But like I said, that's a long way from my mind at the moment.
Today he was starting a new venture, youth development. The 10-week program sees kids from 5 to 12 put through their paces in small-sided games.
We wanted to give the kids an opportunity to play all year round and, to enjoy themselves and not just sort of play in season. We want them playing in the off season, and that's the only way they improve.
The former Toronto junior moving forward with no regrets.
This is a new chapter and I'm enjoying it.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
They have an intellectual disability, but physically they're achieving all the time.
Leon Burwell has been working with this group of athletes for the past 3 years, passing on all his knowledge from a career which has scaled the heights. And it's his latest shift which has been his most rewarding.
I've been in it about 30-odd years and it's a fantastic achievement. I've coached all ranges and levels, from Falcons at one stage through till this group. I prefer this group.
With the Special Olympics to be staged in the Hunter in December, 4 of his charges will don the green and gold, including Windale's Lee Towers. The power forward is looking at wreaking havoc against the world's best.
I'm expected to play different countries for the first time, against New Zealand, China, Singapore, all of them, so looking real good. Got family and friends coming to watch me play for the first time, and yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Teenager Claudia Jackson isn't called the Pocket Rocket for nothing. She'll play a big role for the girls' national youth side, and she can't wait.
I'm excited, and my family are proud, and my friends are proud of me representing Australia.
Do you think that you've got the Australian side that can win a gold medal?
Yes, I think we can win a gold medal.
The Special Olympics will kick off on December 1 with the opening ceremony at Hunter Stadium. Michael Kane, NBN News.
Finally, a blessedly calm day for these exhausted firefighters. They've spent the past fortnight working around the clock, sacrificing not only time but their lives for the community.
Very proud. I couldn't be more proud of my brigade. They've really dug deep, and a lot of people have sort of left paying jobs to turn out and help the community, which is fantastic.
The Heatherbrae blaze tore through thousands of hectares of bushland, and while these brave battlers were out defending properties, the fire was threatening their own homes.
I live about 100 metres from where it jumped the highway, down in Heatherbrae, so that was pretty. I was kind of oblivious to that. I kind of put it out of my mind and just continued what I was doing.
I've been to a few, but when it's so close to home, you sort of try and block it out of your mind, because you always think, how close is it to home?
At just 16, Braden Barnes is the youngest member of the Raymond Terrace Brigade, and he was feeling the heat.
Bit frightening, but yeah, I was just put it behind. Kept on going, working with the team.
Braden is around the same age as some of those accused of lighting the fire, something that makes the blood boil of those who worked desperately to stop the destruction.
I suppose we just need to implore that parents are talking to their kids and explaining to them that this isn't right and that they shouldn't be doing that, and then just have to rely on the justice system.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
I was fearful during the week that he may not get here, but I'm very, very thankful that he's actually taken the time to come and join us.
They're the only side in the A-League not to score this season, as the Jets went looking to improve their stats. Wellington had to raise the bar. An exciting opening stanza across the ditch, but one that would ultimately add to the Jets' frustration. The goalless stretch now 336 minutes, and the chances would continue deep into the first half. The Jets dominated possession, but if it wasn't for Mark Birighitti, could have found themselves down at the break. His nerve was tested again in the second 45. The Phoenix, before a crowd of 9,000, seemingly also feeling the pressure, a minute later they struggled to convert again. The Jets left to wait for their maiden goal of the 2013 season.
I saw someone coming on my left, so I was able to just hang on.
Business as usual at the club this morning. The events of yesterday morning were anything but. At 9 o'clock, a man walked through the doors armed with a gun.
One of the staff members was doing a count in the change room. It's a change room with glass frontage. The offender produced a pistol and demanded the money.
The 23-year-old staff member didn't hesitate, handing over cash. The gunman then fled. The experienced casual staff member was shaken but not physically hurt during the hold-up. Police say he acted appropriately during what would have been a frightening experience.
We certainly don't condone anyone try and resist or get involved in any way. That said, it's not a pleasant thing to occur to anyone.
Thanks to the club's extensive security camera setup, police have a solid description of the offender. He's about 180 centimetres tall with an olive complexion, athletic looking. He had stubble on his face and a nose ring. At the time of the hold-up, he was wearing a grey top, dark pants, a white hat and sunglasses. Anyone with information is urged to contact Crime Stoppers. Kate Haberfield, NBN News. An enormous fiberglass egg sits in a nest of steel high on a totem pole, the sculpture a gift to the city.
Wendy Whiteley, his widow, actually created this sculpture and built it 1 year after his death. So he had a range of small sculptures based on this, and he had plans to build a large one.
Black Totem 2 symbolises rebirth and regeneration. Coincidentally, that's something gallery supporters are still hoping for with the $21 million redevelopment. The sculpture arrived this morning after a year of negotiations. It's one of just 2 such Whiteley designed works in existence. Hopefully a golden nest egg for the gallery.
Our director convinced Wendy that this was the right place for it to come to.
That director is Ron Ramsey. His position is being axed with the amalgamation of the directors of the museum, civic theatre and gallery into one cultural facilities manager.
Each facility will continue to have a person directly responsible for that facility. I actually feel for Ron Ramsey. I mean, at the end of the day, his name's being thrown around, but has anyone asked him what he thinks?
NBN News has tried, but Mr Ramsey has been told he can't speak to the media. As for reports, Lord Mayor Jeff McCloy has an issue with Mr Ramsey due to a disagreement over donated public art.
It's absolute rubbish, and I'm surprised that it's even getting an airing, to be honest. As far as the restructuring council is concerned, Councillor McCloy, as the Lord Mayor, has had no more influence on that than any other councillor.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. They're a successful husband and wife team with well over a dozen books between them. Ron Morrison is a highly regarded photographer who began his career with the Newcastle Herald. His wife Liz, a former history teacher and university lecturer.
I do all the writing and all the computer work, and he basically is the artistic one.
Their latest collaboration, which Ron describes as a kaleidoscope of the colourful swinging 60s, is an overview of the decade in text and photographs. The book came about by chance after a recent house move, when the couple rediscovered hundreds of Ron's old photos from a tour around Australia.
I knew they were up in a suitcase, but up on the rafters, but I hadn't touched them for years and years and years and years. So when we moved, they came down.
Still in excellent condition, they include snapshots of the Hunter, children playing at Stockton, the canoe pool at Newcastle Beach, the BHP Steelworks, even the oak factory at Hexham, where cartons had just replaced glass bottles. Among their favourites,
I think the Opera House, because that's so iconic, and to be there when the Opera House is under construction.
Those Were the Days will be released on Friday. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. Natasha Boland has always loved maths. At an age when other girls were playing dress-ups, she was adding up.
Started when I was about, 6 years old even, I think, was when I first decided I wanted to be a mathematician, which is on the young side to make that choice.
Not a princess?
No, I did go via astronaut.
Space exploration's loss is mathematics' gain, her passion for the profession bringing the subject to life. Professor Boland is considered a world-leading operations researcher, applying maths to real-world problems.
For example, on looking at the delivery of cancer radiation treatment and do some mathematical analysis to help make that delivery more efficient, versus, say, looking at a business and looking at their supply chain and trying to understand how that's operating and how that could be made more efficient.
A key area of her work has been on aircraft movements, with the aim of optimising efficiency for airlines facing tight margins.
The fact that you can bring maths to bear on any one of those things, I think, is one of the real joys of it and what keeps me in it.
Since moving to Newcastle from Melbourne 5 years ago, Professor Boland's focus has shifted to a very local logistics challenge, the movement of coal. She's working with the Hunter Valley Coal Chain Coordinator to optimise the movement of more than 100 million tonnes of coal from 35 mines in the valley to Newcastle Port.
That in particular is a very big operation. It's a huge logistics operation, and the export of coal is a major part of Australia's economic activity.
Again, highlighting the diversity of her work, Professor Boland's next project will have an environmental slant, managing water flows.
Mathematical relationships kind of underpin everything. I mean, it's kind of obvious when you think about it. If you release water from a dam, well, the level of the dam is going to go down. So that's a mathematical relationship.
She makes it sound so simple. That skill recognised with an award for excellence from Newcastle Innovation.
I'm very proud and very happy that they realised that I was doing something hopefully that's good.
Back home and soaking up the glory.
We like to say we bleed black and blue. And yeah, we did that definitely on the weekend, and it meant a lot to us.
Yesterday, Jesse Adam needed something special. And the 24-year-old delivered the ride of his life to help Merewether seal the inaugural Northern New South Wales Board Riders Battle.
I needed to score with the very last wave in the last sort of 3 minutes of the heat, and lucked into another one, like the third or fourth, lucky moment of the day for me, and happened to pull off another big scoring ride, and just came into the cheering squad on the beach, just met me on the shoreline, and it was a great feeling.
Based on the surf tag format, the new event had some big names and some big scores. Natural footer Dane Atchison's 10-point ride at Booty Booty was enough for Avoca to make the 4-team final. But the star-studded Lebar, Coffs and Avoca sides were unable to match a red-hot Merewether and Adam with two 8.37 rides.
There's a lot of depth in this club, and it's our 50th anniversary next year, so we're pumped to go to Cronulla next year. It's going to be awesome.
The national title will be up for grabs on Australia Day.
In the nationals of surf tag, we've been sort of top 5 for the last 5 to 10 years. I mean, we've won a couple, but it's been a long time between drinks, and I think this is our best chance ever.
It's a coastal icon, serene one day, perfect the next. But look a little closer and the ageing baths are in a state of disrepair.
The promenades are in poor condition, the walls are in poor condition and the floor's in poor condition. So the best thing to do is to pull them all apart and recreate them again.
Major work is needed to restore these baths to their former glory. To do that, there'll be none of this for the best part of a year. After a successful tender is chosen, it's expected improvements will start in late February. Best case, they'll be finished before the following summer ends. Worst case, the baths will be closed for the entire 2014-15 warm season.
We will be pushing our contractors to provide a minimum time frame for the baths to be closed, but there will be some significant disruption.
It's been 75 years since these baths underwent major work, and it's going to take more than a lick of paint. There'll be the obvious improvements, but also changes to the way the baths are maintained, hopefully avoiding the need to close the pools twice a week for cleaning.
They'll look almost the same as they are now, particularly the pump house and the standing blocks.
Council is hoping the completed work will be good for at least another 75 years. Kate Haberfield, NBN News.
Snapper Rocks and Kira Beach offer some of the most popular waves on the East Coast and play host to world-class surfing events. Both are man-made banks, and now Lake Macquarie Council has proposed the same idea to create a more ideal wave here at Blacksmiths.
It's already a classic surf break here. There's a number of surf events that are held here throughout the year, and a super bank would hopefully create a massive surf event for the city of Lake Macquarie.
Last night, Council has approved a feasibility study on developing a super bank using the sand that's clogging up Swansea Channel.
I think it's a good idea, and it's probably about time that something like that did happen. Get a few more people to the area.
If the channel is to be dredged, there will be tons, millions of tonnes of sand that needs to go somewhere.
Council will now look into whether Blacksmiths is the best option both economically and environmentally, but a community group has raised concerns and would prefer to see the sand sold.
I think what you have to look at is the cost of doing that for the benefit, and it would take a long time to do the research on it. Who's going to pay for that? What's going to happen to the sand while that's been going on?
Council is seeking further discussions with the state government about funding of the dredging and hopes to present a report on the Superbank next year. Diana Bushby, NBN News.
Sometimes I find it difficult to stay inspired and to, make it fresh for yourself again. But when you come in Newcastle and there is a Stewart and Son piano ready for you, I was counting up for this concert because I really knew okay, this is going to offer me something that I've never experienced before.
For 10% of our population or more, this is a regular part of life. Asthma is a major disease burden in Australia, and here at Phil Hansborough's lab at the Hunter Medical Research Institute, respiratory illness is front and centre of research.
Emphysema is a huge problem. It's currently the 4th commonest cause of death in the world, and there are no treatments for some forms of asthma, and there's no treatments for emphysema.
The team here is working on finding treatments and has just picked up a $1.2 million grant from the National Health and Medical Research Council to further its efforts.
We're trying to understand how these diseases occur, and if we can understand how they occur, then we can interrupt those processes and develop new preventions and treatments.
Among a string of projects, Professor Hansborough is looking at a common complication of respiratory disease. Asthmatics and people with emphysema are more susceptible to infections like influenza, and in them, the effects are more profound. In a novel approach, the team is tackling such flare-ups using cancer drugs.
We found that these treatments suppress the mechanisms that viruses use to enter into cells. And so if we can stop the mechanisms that viruses use to enter into cells, then they can't it cause infections anymore.
Professor Hansbrough hopes it could eventually be used both as a treatment and preventative measure. It's cutting-edge work, recognised by Newcastle Innovation with an Award of Excellence.
Things are happening all the time. Everybody's really excited about how things are going here.
Nice family entertainment. That's what we do best. We go around the world entertaining millions and millions of fans.
Putting the ball in the back of the net has become a problem for the Jets. Improvisation may be the solution, although there were some positive signs in their last showing.
It's just a matter of it clicking on the day, and I think especially on the weekend it just didn't quite fall for us.
The task doesn't get any easier this weekend. They're facing the Central Coast. Holding Mariners playmaker Marcos Flores in the final third will be the key, as well as the reigning Golden Boot Daniel McBreen, expected to make his first appearance back after a short loan stint in Asia.
You can't ever keep them quiet for 90 minutes, so it's a matter of limiting the amount of time you give them on the ball and limiting the supply that they get from their own.
Defence has been the Jets' only highlight, and producing a hat-trick of clean sheets in his first M1 derby is Q Yalene's mission.
I think be a little similar than what we played against Wellington. So, but from our point of view, we have to show our game and we play at home.
Jets fans will be hoping that the return of Emile Heskey will give them a point of difference.
So it will give us more option in attacking point of view, and Emile knows when to head for the goal or when to just keep the ball.
Michael Kane, NBN News. It was the question on the lips of many unhappy clubs. That proposal was to reduce the number of teams in the top grade from 10 to 8, in the hope of lifting the overall standard. Club officials were asked to vote on the concept by the Competition Structure Subcommittee, but the venture was knocked on the head last night 12 votes to 4. The result saving the top flight status of Nelson Bay and Easts.
I think it could have been planned and prepared a lot better. Hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Under the NHRU Constitution, the board does still have the power to determine the final makeup of the competition.
I can't talk for the rest of the board at this early stage, but I suppose you'd have to be a brave man to go against the vote last night.
I think there are some people on that board that need to have a look at when their use-by date is.
The two clubs will still be under the microscope.
They're going to have to be very conscious and ensure that they can provide the necessary players to be competitive in the Premier Division.
I am determined this year that East will be, in 2014, a viable force in Newcastle rugby.
Michael Kane, NBN News.